Hello, everyone. It's Gloria, and this is chapter 7 of my video book that I'm doing for YouTube, my YouTube channel called Gloria, the Story of a Woman. Okay, last week we were I was in high school once again, doing what I needed to do to get through it, and babysitting, playing basketball, being out of the house as much as possible, because when I was in there, as I said, it was structured, so structured, and a lot of arguing and things like that. So I just tried to stay gone. And of course, the older you get, the more you're able to do that, even though back in the 50s, you just didn't get up and go out the door and do what you did in the 60s and 70s. But I managed. And then I got me a job. I got me a little job out at a shopping center in a dress shop. And that was wonderful because I would work after school. I could work after school and on the weekends. Plus, I got to put all my school clothes on layaway, pay for them out of my little check that I got through the summer. And when September came, I could have the clothes that I needed and wanted and bought them myself. So I was very proud of that. So I was always a worker. Ever since I worked in the fields when I was a young, living at my grandmother's, I've always been a worker, and never shied away from it. And then in high school, of course, I have these wonderful memories of high school and my friends. I remember we had two guys, Jimmy McCullough and Emmett Wyndham, and they were in a couple of my classes. And they worked at a funeral home that was owned by Jimmy McCullough's parents. And Jimmy eventually became, the owner of the mortuaries and did very well for himself. But they would come into class, and honest to goodness, they would keep us in stitches, telling stories. And I'm sure a lot of them were very embellished. I don't know, because they were both crazy. Emmett especially. Emmett was short and very black hair, dark complected. Jimmy was tall, looked perfect for a mortician. Tall blonde hair, shallow skin, and they would come in and tell these tales in class, and we would absolutely crack up. And then, of course, we had the junior and senior prom, where I bought my own gown and dress and earrings and everything that I wore to the junior and senior proms. And so I've got all those good memories. And of course, we got to decorate the gym and all of this. And I have another interesting story that I have to tell you, because one day I have an English teacher, and she was very, very strict. However, she taught me great punctuation and great spelling and things like that. So I was very, very happy after I left her class. So I'm walking down the hall with this friend of mine, and I am reaming this teacher out. I mean, I'm telling how bad she is and all of this. And I go back into this teacher's class one day, and she said, Gloria, she said, I hear you kind of gave me a raking over the other day. And I said, what are you talking about? She said, you know that who you were talking to is my daughter, right? So I have many instances where I was constantly putting my foot in my mouth and doing and saying things that I probably shouldn't have said, but said them anyway. So that was another cute little story. And as I said, I made it. I made it through it. I graduated. I had a wonderful class of graduates that I graduated with. And then immediately I got a job. I was 17 when I graduated, and I got a job immediately at Flint Electric. And I started working. Of course, I had no car. I was taken to work, picked up from work, that kind of stuff. I had met a guy. We had gone on vacation down into Pensacola, and I had met a young guy, a nice guy, very nice guy. And he worked for, at that time, Southern Bell, which became AT&T. And he would call me, and we would talk, and he would write me letters. So one time, he came up to see me. And I remember that my stepdad met him at the door, and it was not a good meeting. It was one of interrogation. And when the guy left, I never heard from him again. So those were the kinds of things, and also other things that I was dating, and but I did not push for dates, because even as I was out of high school and working, I still had to be home by 10:30 at night. And I've walked out of many movies that a date had taken me on, and had to go home because it was 10:30, because I did not want to deal with the aftermath and what I had to go through, and the long sermons that went on and on and on about whatever. I don't know. I learned to tune myself out of it. It wasn't long that really things got really, really bad at home, really bad. And as I said, one night, I made up my mind. I got to get out of here. I have got to get out of here. I had gone to work and got a very good job at the bank, and there in town, and was working in bookkeeping. And I enjoyed it. The people there were very nice. I really liked it and was doing good in my job. But I couldn't take the pressure from home. It was just unbearable. As I said, the older I got, and the more, it seemed like the more control that my stepfather wanted over me. I don't know if it was from past experiences with him when I was little. I don't know. And I really didn't care to find out. But I made up my mind that I was going to walk out of there. And one of the directors at the bank, who I knew, his mother lived in town, and his mother rented me a room, a little tiny room with just a bed in it. I walked out with a few clothes. I remember leaving, and it took, I had to get up a lot of courage, believe you me. So when I do things like selling everything and getting on a plane going to Mexico, it really isn't that hard for me, because I have already done hard things in my life and jumped off the edge and into the abyss, not knowing where I was going to go or what was going to happen to me. But I left and moved in with Miss Barker. Miss Barker was a 7-day Adventist. She'd get on that phone, she'd have friends over, and they'd pray all night long. I don't know what they were praying for or who or about or anything, but they prayed a lot. Those people, they prayed, trust me. So I moved into her little room, and she was really nice to me, very nice. And I bought me a car, a 57 Chevy sedan. I'll never forget it. It was yellow and white. I loved it. It was the kind that when you rolled all four of the windows down, it was all open. It didn't have the little strip in the middle that looked like, a sedan does today. And I bought that car, and I thought that I was absolutely in heaven. And of course, by then I was 18, 19 years old, and I was doing well. I was very quiet. I didn't go a lot. I didn't date a lot. And as I said, I led a very quiet life. But it was one that I had now been able to establish for myself that, okay, I can do this. And I met a girl in the bank, Jean Peacock, and she and her friend had an apartment. And I remember one time she had surgery, and she went to stay with her mother for a while. She was gone for quite a while. And she told me, she said, "Gloria, you can stay in my apartment if you want to." And I went in and stayed with her roommate. And it was such a wonderful feeling of being independent, my own transportation, and I really was a good person. I didn't go absolutely wild. I didn't drink. I didn't do anything like that. I did not go out and have sex with guys. I was very, very, very subdued, believe it or not. and led a very quiet life. And then one night, I go to this club, and I only went there to dance. They had good bands. It was called the Sandman. And I walk in, and who is there but my mother, my stepfather, and another couple. And it was very cold, very calculating. Once again, very intimidating to me, because I was made to feel that I was the one in the wrong. I was the one that did the thing that was wrong, and I should be ashamed of myself. So it was still that same thing. You can't, don't do this, don't do that. You shouldn't do this, you shouldn't do that. So still, even though I was out on my own and doing okay, they never even asked me, how are you? What are you doing? How are you doing? And it wasn't easy. I felt bad. I felt bad for a long time. But I knew that I could not go back to that house, and believe it or not, I never lived there again. Absolutely not. However, then another night I go to the Sandman, and I am sitting at a table, and it's late, and I'm telling my friend, I'm really ready to go. I've had enough of this. Because as I said, remember, I did not drink. I went to have a good time, and it was about the only place to go there. This was a town, an Air Force base, and we were always taught, do not date an airman. They will love you and leave you. Do not date an airman. So we were taught to not have much to do with an airman. I'm sitting at the table, my friend is out on the dance floor, and I have a glass of water sitting there, and this tall, good-looking guy comes up and looks at me and says, what are you drinking? And I said, I'm drinking water. He said, no, you're not. That's vodka. I said, okay, have a drink. Go ahead, help yourself. And he took a drink of my water, and he almost spit it out. He said, you are serious? I said, yes, I'm serious. I do not drink. I don't drink alcohol. So he asked me to dance. And that, my dear friends, was the beginning of a 38-year love-hate romance. And that's what chapter 8 is going to be about, is the beginning of my life with my husband, my one and only husband that I had. I've only been married once in my life. And that's going to be a roller coaster ride, trust me. So y'all come back next week, and remember, this is the story of my life. I want to share it with you. You might cry a little, you might laugh a little, you might learn something. And but it's a transparent of my life that I have lived and how I've survived it for 83 years and ended up in Costa Rica, where I am today filming this. I love all of you. Thank you for watching. Mwah. Till next week. Bye-bye.